We are the Asbury Park African American Music Project, and we're here tonight with Mr. Charles Trott, Ms. Yvonne Clayton, and I'm Jennifer Souter. And we've worked together for about 5 years now, celebrating the history and the music of Springwood Avenue in Asbury Park.
I'm Yvonne Clayton, and I grew up here in Asbury Park, and I remember when it was a very, very exciting place to be on Springwood Avenue in the West Side. So I'm very happy to be a part of this adventure. It's an opportunity to honor the legacy that was Springwood Avenue and what it can be and will be in the future.
Yeah, I'm Charles Trott, lifelong resident of Asbury, also a visual artist and arts educator, and yes, I've been with this organization since its inception.
Well, this summer we had the opportunity to have live music again in the Turf Club, and it's the first time there's been live music in the Turf Club in many years, and we were really excited to be able to have some of the musicians that played in the house band, like Mr. Al Holmes, come back and perform and just have a lot of fun to bring attention back to what the Turf Club means to the community and get to the opportunity to have people come together and listen to live music on Springwood Ave again.
And it was fun. Even though we're sitting here in a building that doesn't have a roof, needs a lot of tender loving care, it was just the idea we're back inside the turf. And you could feel the giants of yesterday in this room when the performers started to play. So it's fun.
I think one of the most important things about preserving and revitalizing the turf is, as a music venue, as a cultural venue, it's the only one. So it stands out in that regard.
And in 2018, we had the opportunity, Yvonne and I went out to California and we spoke at the National Trust for Historic Preservation conference, and we were talking about the history of Springwood Avenue and Asbury Park and the cultural history, the African American history, and we showed images of Springwood Avenue, and a room full of historic preservationists said, "What are you doing about the Turf Club?" Because they saw that it was a significant spot in the neighborhood and the last standing music venue. So since then, we've been working and advocating for the preservation of the Turf Club so it can once again be a community music venue and a place for the community to come together.
So we were on a quest, and we're on a quest to make this building a viable building. And we're going to be able to do it. We're going to need a lot of help and support to raise the monies that we need, but we're in the process of purchasing the building, so we know that it's going to continue to survive and stand for the community.
And over the years, we've had the chance to interview musicians from all different eras. We were very fortunate to have the opportunity to interview Mr. Al Griffin, Ms. Dee Holland, Mr. Cliff Johnson, who were all in their 90s at the time that we interviewed them. We were able to do a tribute to these musicians that had played together on Springwood Avenue, had played together at points throughout the years. And this summer, we were able to have Mr. Cliff Johnson, phenomenal saxophone player, now 95 years young, come in and hear Val Johnson play the sax in the Turf Club, and it was a pretty special moment. And that's part of what we've been trying to do, is really highlight the generations of music and how music in Asbury Park has always been a part of the history here, and in particular on Springwood Avenue.
And as a result of the interviews we did, the city honored those three musicians, and it brought new life to them. And it also introduced generations who had no history, no idea that there was this history and that we had these phenomenal musicians here. I think something else that was a highlight for me was when they had a tribute to Gladstone Trott at the Armory, and the number of musicians who showed up to play. You had no idea that there was this trove of wonderful, wonderful musicians throughout this community and the surrounding communities.
And the importance of history, cultural history, at this time, I don't think can be understated. We're under assault in so many ways. but especially educationally. And revitalizing the turf into an edutainment center, which as a teacher, I often say, as an educator, you are no longer just a teacher. You are no longer just an educator. You're an edutainer. They don't think of history. Well, some of us don't even think of history, but if you don't understand history, you will never understand the present, and then forget about the future because you don't know where you are. So this is a vital institution, albeit a little run down, but that's why we're here.
And we really want to maintain this feel of a jazz club. So the scale of this building, the way the door opens is an example. Every time we have that corner door open, people peek in, say, what's going on the turf? And that this intersection here at Atkins and Springwood has been an important part of this community's history for so long. And it comes up in all the interviews. Oh, I remember walking down, you hear this music, you hear that music. So we want to have that happen again.
When people walk down the street, you want them to feel the energy and the excitement that there is live music, not just recorded music, but live music. And also, we will play all kinds of music, but this is a venue that is devoted to jazz. There's nothing like the sound of jazz coming through speakers, and I don't think everyone has that true appreciation anymore. So that's part of our goal.
In the history of this turf club is the history of many local musicians that, people who have only moved here in the last, say, 10 years, or people who are 40, 30, wouldn't even know about it. To have that information available so that once again, people will remember that Asbury had a number of local musicians, as well as, regional, as well as national and international musicians have come here to play throughout the history of the building. So we want to keep that information, that feeling as well, but the information available too.
And it's something that we talk a lot about, that this idea that, yes, when new people come to the town, say, I had no idea about Springwood Avenue, but also for the community that's been here all along or has moved to Neptune or in the local area, to try to dispel that feeling of erasure or this history didn't happen or it all ended, when really there's a strong history and a strong tie and the community is still here. And so we really want to make sure that the voices, that the stories are told through the voices of those who experienced it, and also just have a platform and a way to share the history. When Charles was talking about education, we had the opportunity to work with the Asbury Park School District, develop a curriculum where the kids of all ages were learning about Springwood Ave history, and they built models of the Turf Club, they built models of the Orchid Lounge, and they're talking pre-K all the way up, and really got so excited, dressed up as musicians, were playing instruments, and so that's the type of thing that we want. We want to really have a way to show the full history of Asbury Park.
And the other part with the children, they were so thirsty for the knowledge. They loved it. They created pictures depicting what they thought Springwood Avenue looked like back in the 40s and the 50s and the early 60s. They found pictures and recreated the cars and the clothing. It was an opportunity for them to open their minds and express themselves.
And we've had the chance we have a digital museum where we've really been, again, since we want to capture the voices of the musicians and of the business owners and the people who lived worked and celebrated on Springwood Avenue, we've been able to share images and interviews and music all through our digital museum, which during the pandemic was particularly helpful. We have a platform called Pass It Down that's really designed to share community history and some community liveliness as we speak tonight.
Save the history and continue it.
Yes.
And we are also really fortunate that everything that we have created, recorded, is available from the archives at Monmouth University in the Springsteen archives. So it's going to be preserved for history.
Yeah, and there's been plenty of people working and of course talking and thinking about the history of Springwood Avenue, and Charlie and Pam Horner had a comprehensive book series of books come out recently, and the Asbury Park Museum and the Historical Society. There's other organizations that have been doing wonderful work as well, and one of our goals is to make sure that everyone's working together to again highlight these stories, so that the African American history of Asbury Park isn't viewed as a sidebar or one page of a book, but really again central to what's going on in this city from the start.
Academically, I'm not a historian, but I'm involved with a lot of history, especially African diasporic history, which this would be a part of, because these were African Americans. These were black people, males and females, born and raised here, went out, became world class, at least in terms of their talent, if not their travel and the talent. So it needs to be brought home. It needs to be told. And like I was saying, academically, in history, you do the theory, you read, you go to manuscripts, you do that, and then you come out in the field. Here's the field. Here's one field that's left. Okay, the people aren't here, many of them, but a record of them is here. And many times, as Jennifer said, you can hear some of the voices still, literally, because there's a recording of the interviews that we've had with the artists when they were here. And, not necessarily here, but you hear the voices. They tell the story. So it's no theoretician, no PhD, history, nah. Here's the history.
And the other thing is we're at a crossroads. We're at the crossroads of Atkins and Springwood, which is a very important area. Right down the street is where Fats Waller wrote Honeysuckle Rose.
Right.
In this, across the street from us is Springwood Park, a gathering place, one of the first places in recent history where live music has been played. So we are on a continuum, and we're just helping the community to come back.
And in that park, that's about where Cuba's used to be, another very famous musical venue that goes back. The Orchid, of course, was further down near the tracks, the Orchid Lounge. And there were other ones, Madonna's and different ones that were along this Springwood Avenue corridor from Main Street to 35. Well, in Asbury, of course, you won't go to 35. You'll only go just a little, west of Ridge Avenue. But in that span of how many ever blocks that is, that was the heart of the culture. And as Yvonne said, this may not be, in terms of actual measure, the middle of the west side of Asbury along Springwood Avenue, but in terms of culturally, it was the hub, and still sort of is.
And another piece of what we've done is mapping. So if you're really interested to see what Springwood Avenue looked like and what was here, go to our website, and you will see that all along this corridor, nothing but music venues, record stores,
restaurants.
businesses. It was just a very, very vibrant community that had, I always say, it had a rhythm, it had a beat, and you could feel it when you were walking down the street.
And part of what we want to do is maintain a space and a place, either through our website and also in person when the Turf Club is running again, for people to come and share their information. So just as an example, fortunately this has started to happen over the past few years. Word has started to spread, and for example, the daughter of Al, who owned the record store, recently reached out to us.
Al, House of Hits.
House of Hits, because the House of Hits comes up in all the interviews. People talk about House of Hits. And his daughter lives in Hawaii. He recently passed. She reached out to us, said she wants to come share some stories, and that happens. We want to continue that because, again, whether it's the next generation, there's so many stories to be told.
And plus, we had an opportunity for the youth to come in and talk to our seniors at the senior center, and the seniors shared their stories. The youth, of course, were, I don't believe it. This is not something they'd heard before. And as a result of their listening to talent and listening to music, they created Asbury Park's Got Talent, an opportunity for people to come out and display what they can do in front of a live audience.
So we are a nexus. We will hopefully be an inspiration, because in the events or in interviews, the children or the young people will see that, oh, Asbury's West Side was really a community. They can view the pictures. As I said before, you can hear the stories of the people when they were young, the musicians, as well as see them. So, aside from being there personally themselves, I don't think there's anything better.
And I think it's our hope that the turf, when it is up and running, will be somewhat of a community center, a place where young people can come and learn music from musicians, from the professional musicians. A place where, if you want to come and find out more history, because we will have the types of terminals that you can use, you can do that. You can do your own research. You don't have to leave your neighborhood. And of course, a place where you can listen to live music.
Yeah, but people often ask, who played in the Turf Club? Who are the famous? And first of all, Billie Holiday, Duke Ellington, everybody came through Springwood Avenue. People played on the boardwalk and came and jammed on Springwood Avenue late night, and so the list of famous names is long. However, it's also the fact that a lot of the musicians, there's so much talent that was local that either played with these big names or became their big names themselves, that sometimes get lost in the story. We want to make sure that those stories are really brought out. So if it attracts people in to say, oh, this used to be called Little Harlem, and that's of interest, that's great. But when you start to dig deep, you see that the history of the music of Springwood Avenue is a story unto itself.
This project started out of a grant that the library received. And it was finite, we're going to start this date and end that date. Once we started, it was like that onion, you start peeling back. And we kept discovering things and more and saying, we can't stop. And so we've continued to go out and get other grants, and we've continued to learn. And as we learn, people reach out to us and they volunteer information, and they open up their scrapbooks, and we scan their images. And we just hope that we're going to continue that. And we think that as we tell the story, other people will tell their stories. So we're just going to keep peeling back that onion and getting more and more information.
And we formed as a nonprofit in 2018, but as Yvonne said, we'd been working on the Oral History Project prior for a few years. Really just a group of interested people from the community, just volunteering together. And then once we formed the nonprofit, we've had a core team since then of the three of us, and then also Melissa Keeling, who has recently moved away but is still working with us from behind the scenes. And she's a phenomenal musician herself. She's a PhD, and plays the flute and is really a fantastic part of our team. And also Kathleen Melgar, who is the assistant director at the Asbury Park Public Library, and Mr. Ruben Bray, who's a DJ himself, and also works in the Asbury Park School District. So we're a pretty eclectic team, and that's our core team that works, on a daily basis as volunteers. But in this town, there are so many people that are willing to jump in and help, that we've had just the amazing expertise and support of so many people, from people doing documentaries with us and editing and interviewing us and doing sound system and just jumping in the Bruce Springsteen archives, that it's really just become this, this network of people that have been working with us all along.
Yeah, we could not have accomplished this by ourselves, because we're 5 volunteers who have other opportunities and responsibilities. So we're very grateful to that network.
Yes, we found a grant that we wanted to apply for, and we went to the library because we were not a nonprofit at the time, and asked if we could partner with them to submit the grant, and they've been a partner all the way through, along with the Bruce Springsteen archives from the start, and lots of community organizations have jumped in, and probably I don't want to say more important, but as important is a lot of individuals that just, for example, when we put on these events at the Turf Club this summer, there's no electricity here. We were carrying in coolers of water, and people would jump in and offer to do Connie Freestone professional photography, and just say, "Oh, I'll help. I'll be the fire watch. I'll be the security." And so there's no way we could have done that without people just wanting to be a part of it.
And also, we have to be grateful to the Monmouth County Historical Society and also the New Jersey Historical Society.
We're always looking for more grants, and we also have a few corporate sponsors who have been there along the way. ANSERV, which is a telecommunications company, Beach House Brewery,
New Jersey Natural Gas.
We've had a long list of, we want to make it longer, but we have a great list of supporters that have helped us along the way.
ANSERV.
And people can, and we always need volunteers, especially, we always look, if you're interested in events, history, we love history geeks because we have a lot of wonderful interviews that are transcribed and need to be archived properly, and people that love to be at community events. We're always like to be out in the community at events, so we love to have people be a part of the organization. There's lots of ways to help out. Every Wednesday we post West Side Wednesday on our social media. We highlight different musicians, we highlight what we're doing, and that's a great way to keep up with what's going on. So if you want to get more involved, find out more about Asbury Park African American Music Project, you can find out more at our website, asburyamp.org. You can go to our Facebook, our Instagram, and you can always create your own Facebook fundraiser for us to celebrate your birthday, a great way to help out the organization. And come volunteer with us. I'm Jennifer Souter.
I'm Yvonne Clayton.
And I'm Charles Trott.
And
we are AP Amp.